So trout fishing with power bait. We're going to go over just the quick tips and basics to get you out there this year for trout season. Hopefully help you catch some more fish. So we're just going to go over what you need to set it all up. It's pretty simple. You don't need a whole lot of gear. You can go out, catch your trout. It's a really easy and effective way to catch them. And it's great for anglers of all skill levels, but it's especially great for first time anglers and kids to get them out there with some power bait off the bottom and get them catching fish. So what do we need? So for our rod and reel, you're looking at probably a 6-foot rod to 7-foot rod. You know, it can be a little bit less, a little bit more, but medium light up to medium action. Light action rod's going to be probably not enough backbone to really get a good hook set. And anything in the heavy action is just going to be a little too much. You're not going to have enough sensitivity with the rod tip to feel subtle bites, and it's just a little overkill. So most rods that you're going to see, you know, they come in that medium action, but medium light. For your fishing line, doesn't really matter the reel, whatever you're comfortable with. If you use a spinning reel, a spin casting reel, a bait casting reel, all are effective. They can all be used with these techniques that we're going to go over, these methods with fishing off the bottom with power bait. But as far as the line goes, you're probably looking at 4-pound test at the lightest, 8-pound test at the heaviest. Monofilament or fluorocarbon line is fine. 6-pound test is really that good happy medium. It's enough that you're going to be able to hold on to any trout that you catch in the state. And it's light enough that you're going to get some of that light action where you can fight the fish a little bit. If you start using 10-12-pound test, it's a little bit overkill. You're just going to fork the fish in. And then if you get too light, then it's going to be, you know, too much and the fish is going to be able to run all over the place. So 6 to 8 pounds is real good line to have. You could go down to 4, you go up to 10, but 6 to 8 is kind of right where you want to stick. So what do we need for our tackle? Tackle is super simple. What you're going to need is you're going to need some casting weights. So casting weights kind of look like a little teardrop, have an eyelid up at the top right here to string your line through. This is an 1/8 ounce. This is a 1/4 ounce. What I recommend is an 1/8 ounce on still days. So if the wind isn't blowing very hard and you are on stagnant water. So anything that you don't have a bunch of current ripping through, where when you cast out and this sits down on the bottom, it'll hold on the bottom without anything else. You want to have a lot of bite sensitivity on your rod tip. So the lighter weight you can use, the better. Those fish, when they come and they peck at the bait, if they feel that heavy weight at the bottom, it can turn them off when they bite it that first time. And if it's too heavy and they're pecking at it and they're not moving the weight around, it's not going to indicate the bite. So you're going to want to have 1/8 ounces perfect for still water, up to maybe a 3/8. And if it's a really windy day, you might elect for a 1/4 ounce. And on a really windy day, most of the bodies of water that we have for trout, that if you're fishing in a lake or a pond, or even some of our creeks and rivers where we don't have a whole lot of current going through, if you're fishing in a back eddy or a really slow run where the water's just not really moving, it's not going to move your weight. You might get up to a 1/2 ounce in moving water. But you just want enough to where you can hold the bottom. And then when you reel up your slack on your line, you reel it up to that rod tip, and that rod tip just gets like this, and it might even get just a slight bend in it if you're really held onto the bottom. What you don't want is your line slack like this when you're on the bottom. You don't want that wind to put a big bow in it. So 1/8 ounce is great on calm days in any type of lake or small creek, like Medicine Creek or Robbers Cave, where that water is really not moving. On a windier day, you might get up to a 3/8 or a 1/4 ounce. If you're fishing Blue River, Mountain Fork, or the lower Illinois where the water's moving a little bit more, you might want to start with a 1/4 ounce to see if you can hold the bottom, and then elect all the way up to about a 1/2 ounce. And that should be plenty when you're fishing bait, because you don't want to be fishing bait in really fast water. You want to fish it in back eddies, or really slow runs. You don't want it where that water's just ripping through, where there's big riffle sections. You want it to just be able to hold down on the bottom. So we have our casting weights. What else you'll need? Some split shot. You don't want it to be too small, but you don't want it to be, massive split shot. So just just something that, is your basic split shot that you would use to fish for panfish or anything like that, where you're holding the hook down on the bottom. You want some snap swivels, just something like this, nothing too big, nothing too small. Just what's kind of appropriate with the hook sizes that we're using. So we have our different hooks. So we're gonna have this is a snelled hook. So it comes already on a leader. It comes out of a package. You can find these at your sporting goods stores. They usually come in 6 or 8 packs. The big thing you're looking for is your hook size. You do not want your hook size to be any bigger than a size 8. And you don't want it really any smaller than about size 16. So what you're looking for a good, nice, happy medium is size 10, size 12, maybe even size 14 for your hook size. So this one, like I said, it's a snelled hook that's already on a leader, or you could just use a size 8 to 16 single point hook, or a size 10 to 16 treble hook, something like this. So that's all you need. And then for our bait, PowerBait's going to come something that looks like this. So we have some different colors here. These are kind of my favorite. We have rainbow. It's scented like salmon eggs. We have corn flavored. And we just have our classic original scent PowerBait in red, white, and blue. And then we have our kind of purple colored nymph flavored PowerBait. So these are my 4 kind of go-to. So we got all that. That's all you need. So all that will fit into just a nice little tackle box about this big, or into a little pack. It's super simple. You don't need a whole lot of gear to go trout fishing. So there's a few different options you have to rig up the same exact setup. So all we're doing is we're just trying to fish off of the bottom with PowerBait, which is buoyant. So what that means is this is going to float. So we need a weight to hold it down to the bottom. And what it's going to do is when you put your PowerBait on, that hook is actually going to float until it's tight with your weight on the bottom. So if you are using something like this, where you are tied onto a leader line, you are only going to be able to fish with the snap swivel this far off the bottom. So this is about 8 inches. This is all you're going to be off the bottom. I've fished with these all over the state in still water. This is usually plenty of enough of a leader. You don't need to get way up a foot, 2, 3 feet up off the bottom. Now we're going to show you how to do that, but this is perfectly effective. So if you're just looking for a very easy way to just get set up and go, this is going to be your quickest, simplest way to get fishing on the water. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our snap swivel. You have 2 different options. You can either put your casting weight on the main line before you tie on the swivel. So you'd put it on like this, just on your main line, and then you can tie the swivel on. Or you can tie the snap swivel on first. So we're going to get this on whatever knot you feel comfortable with. I like a Palomar anytime that I can get that line doubled over and through an eye hole. It's just very quick and simple. So we're going to get this tied on. So you get your snap swivel. Now, during trout season, if you have a rod where you go trout fishing, you can just leave the snap swivel on, at all times. And you could probably leave the snell hook on too, but it allows you to kind of switch up if you wanted. Maybe if you bought some pre-made ones like this, and maybe you have some different sizes of leader, you can pop this off and then put on a longer leader line. So we have our snap swivel tied onto our main line now. So this is your easiest option to get on the water. So we open up that snap. It's open like that. We're going to take our casting weight. So here's my 1/8 ounce casting weight. I'm going to put that onto my snap swivel. And then I'm going to take my leader line, and I'm going to take that little loop, and I'm also going to put that onto the snap swivel. And then I'm going to snap it tight. Just like that. So now we're going to put our PowerBait on. So the easiest way to put on your PowerBait is you're just going to take a little finger-sized glob out of there. Something like that. You don't need too much. We just want enough that we can wrap around the hook. So you put it on the hook and just kind of form it around the hook into like a teardrop shape. And you'll see that there will be some cracks as you mold it on there. And you're just going to try to, just work very lightly around, just kind of like Play-Doh, to where you have the hook no longer exposed, just like that. So what we would do is we're going to take this and you're going to cast it to a specific point. You're going to leave your bail open. You're going to let it sink down to the bottom. When it's hit the bottom, you're going to engage your reel. So you close that bail, and then you're just going to slowly reel up until that line gets taut with the rod tip. So you get it into where it's slack, 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 reeling, 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 and it gets tight. And if you can get just a little bit of a bow in it, great. That means you're nice and tight, but you want it just like that. So why I say put it on the snap swivel as opposed to up above, let's say the wind is blowing, or let's say there is a little bit of current and you didn't choose the right size weight. You're too light. You can't get it tight. Well, instead of having to cut my swivel off and retie to put a weight back on, you can just pop this open and then take your Snell loop and your casting weight off, and then you can upgrade to a bigger weight, put that on, put your Snell loop back on, and then snap it tight. So that is the quickest, most efficient way to get you on the water fishing quickly. Now we can do this same exact thing a couple of different ways to give you some more options on depth. Because like I said, when you're tied on with that, you are limited to this 8 inches right here. So that when you cast that out, this would sit on the bottom just like this, and your line is going to float, and it's going to be 8 inches off the bottom. So let's say you're in like heavy weed cover or reeds or just something where you need to float. You feel like you need to get it higher up off the bottom. So your easiest option for that would be to not use a pre-snelled hook with a leader line. You would just take a small hook, again, size 8 at the biggest, all the way up to size 16, but just a single point, small salmon egg type hook, octopus hook, maybe even a little circle hook that you could use. Or you could also use a small treble hook. So what we would do with this is we're going to take our casting weight. We're going to put that on the main line before we do anything. So you can slide that up the main line, leave it alone, good to go. Then we're going to take our whatever hook that you're deciding to use, you're just going to tie that directly on to the main line. So we're not using a swivel in this setup. So again, whatever fishing knot that you're most comfortable with. I like a Palomar knot. It's nice and easy for anglers of all skill levels. It's quick, fast, and effective to get on there. But if you want to use an improved clinch, trilene knot, Orvis knot, whatever works best for you. Then we're going to cut that tag end off. With trout, I like to cut that tag end off all the way at the knot. I don't want anything that the fish can feel poking off. Just so my knot is right on that main line, no tag end hanging off. So you would put your power bait on just like we just showed. You're going to teardrop ball around it. But now, so we have our casting weight on the main line. So it's going to slide freely like this. We don't want that. We want this to be anchored at a certain point of how far we want it off the bottom. So because it's going to get cumbersome to cast if you get more than about 2 feet on this, because this is all going to be hanging off your rod tip when you go to cast it, you probably don't want to go more than about 2 feet. But wherever you decide on your main line between your casting weight and your hook, whatever that distance you want it off the bottom, once you get to that, hold it with your finger, and then you're going to take your piece of split shot. And we're not using the split shot for weight. We're using it as a stopper. So this is all going to sit on the bottom. So you get your split shot on the main line, and then you're going to pinch it down with some pliers. This is important. Now, unlike when we're fishing underneath a bobber or something, and we don't really care if that split shot moves up and down the line a little bit, we want this thing to not move, because that's going to control your depth of where that power bait's at. So make sure that you pinch down the corners of that split shot where it's on the line. Pinch those down nice and tight so that when you go to move it with your hand, a little bit of tension, I'm not moving it. It's on there. So that's going to hold your casting weight. So then your setup is going to look like this, hooked up to your hook. And you're going to put your power bait on that. Again, just going to take out a little daub, just enough to cover your fingertip. Then we're going to take our hook, and then we're just going to work it around the hook. getting rid of all the creases. Now, if you get rid of all the creases and it's on there nice and good and it looks like a solid shape, there's not any cracks or breaks and you can't see the hook, the second that it gets in the water, that water is going to kind of activate this bait and it's going to turn it into a nice big piece that's going to hold on to that hook. When it's not wet, it's pretty easy with any type of tension, or if it gets hung on something, it'll rip that bait off. So once you cast it out there and it hits the water, then it's pretty good and secured. But just like that. Now, instead of PowerBait, you could use kernels of corn, you could use salmon eggs, you could use leeches, you could use worms, but PowerBait is always going to be tried and true. You're going to get bit wherever you go. And like I said, you can use an assortment of bait. So maybe get a few of these, different types. So you can switch up with that if you're not getting bit. But if you're fishing in still water, so any type of lake or creek that's just not really moving, and you're fishing with bait like this, give it 5 to 10 minutes, maybe even 15 in the first place you go. But don't be afraid to move around. Trout are not native to Oklahoma, so they are stocked into these bodies of water. They first get stocked in November. So they get stocked every 2 weeks from November through March. There will be more fish in the water as we get longer into the season because there will be more stockings and the catch rate just won't keep up with the stockings. So in the very early seasons, November, December, though, you're going to have congregations of fish in certain areas of the body of water. So move around until you find those spots. And then those spots will pretty much, most of the time, they're pretty tried and true throughout the course of the season. Fish have found a piece of structure, a drop off, just somewhere where they like to hang out to get food. So that's a good spot to go back to. But when you first start fishing early in the season, move around a bit until you start getting bit. But those quick little setups right there are going to help put you on fish quickly. And you can move around. You can switch up what bait you're using. But super simple. You don't need anything. I keep all my stuff in a box that's this big. So this fits into a little pack for trout. Slip it into a backpack. You can slip into your back pocket, into a hoodie pocket. It's great. You don't need a lot to be out there. One more quick deal that we'll show is attaching a snelled leader line to your main line. So we have the end of our main line right here, and we have our snelled leader on our hook. So if I had these, maybe what happens a lot of times is if you don't have access to like a major sporting good retailer where they have lots of options for hooks, you might only be able to find hooks that are small enough for trout that are attached to one of these snelled leader lines. So in that case, to get this attached to your main line, super simple. All we're going to do is we're going to take our main line, we're going to double it over. And we're just going to make a simple overhand knot like you were tying your shoe with a loop. And you're just going to make a little loop knot. So you pull that through and you create a loop. So you just pull that tight like that. Now we have a loop just like we do on our leader line on our snelled hook. Cut that tag end off. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take this line right here, our main line, where we've made this loop. You're going to take that loop and you're going to put it through the loop of the snelled hook leader. And you're going to pull that through until you go past the knot. So right where you tied the knot that's right there. So now we're just hanging on the main line. You're going to take the hook. This one has the bait on it, but most of the time you wouldn't already have bait on. And you're going to go right up and through the circle of the loop knot that you made on your main line. And then you're just going to pull. Now you're connected. So 3 things that we had there, all to fish the same way. If you fish with the snap swivel, you're going to be limited to whatever your leader is off of your snap swivel. If you want to have, and like I said, that's really easy if you have the right weight chosen. So if you know exactly what weight to use, that's going to be your fast, effective way. If you want to fish 8 to 12 inches off the bottom, depending on how long your leader line on your snell is. Now, if you want to have more of an option where you know you have the weight right, but you want to be able to move your depth, then either tying your snell leader to your main line or just attaching a hook directly to your main line and using split shot in your casting weight. That's going to give you more flexibility to play around with your depth. Using a swivel is going to give you more flexibility to play around with the length of the leader line as well as the size of your casting weight. So you're doing the same exact thing. One just gives you quicker options to alter depth, while the other one gives you quicker options to change your weight. So with that, that's going to get you going for trout season for PowerBait. So check out our other videos on using artificial lures, as well as using flies for fly fishing. And with that, I'm going to end it. Thanks for watching.